afternoon. I am Sergeant Mayer and I will be conducting this period of instruction. Today we'll be discussing task 071-Charlie Oscar Mike 1016, Convert Azimuths. Before we begin, we will do a brief deliberate risk assessment. Our overall risk level is low. We have 4 local hazards that we've identified. First is fire. We are inside a building. In case of fire, we will utilize the 2 main exits to evacuate the building. We have fire extinguishers and smoke detectors in place to mitigate the risk of fire. Dehydration. We are all soldiers living an active lifestyle. We need to be taking in lots of fluids. So you should all have a water source with you. Make sure you're drinking from that regularly. If you notice any signs of dehydration from your fellow soldiers, please let me know. Electrocution. We have electrical devices all around us. Please be aware of those. Be careful with your water sources. Make sure you keep those capped when you're not drinking from them. Water and electronics do not mix. Tripping. We have some wires and cables running around. They're mostly routed out of the way, but use caution and situational awareness to avoid those. Environmental. The Army's green policy is to reduce, reuse, and recycle. Following this period of instruction, we will be conducting a police call of the area. In case of an active shooter situation, we will run, hide, and fight if need be to eliminate the threat. Alright, with that out of the way, let's conduct a quick PCIs. I need to see everybody's map. It should look something like this. I need to see note-taking gear from everybody, paper and pen, okay, and a water source. Great. Okay, we can begin training. Like I said before, our task today is 071-Charlie Oscar Mike 1016, Convert Azimuths. It can be found in STP 21-1, your Soldier's Manual of Common Tasks. This one right here. I will read you the conditions and standards. You are a member of a squad preparing to conduct tactical movement, and you have been directed to convert azimuths in preparation for the movement. You have been given a 1 in 50,000 military map with a declination diagram, pencil, paper, a magnetic azimuth, and a grid azimuth. Some iterations of this task should be performed in Mop 4. Standards: convert an azimuth into a back azimuth, a magnetic azimuth to a grid azimuth, and a grid azimuth to a magnetic azimuth without error. Today we will not be conducting this task in Mop gear. Alright, without further ado, we will start in on the performance steps. First is to convert an azimuth into a back azimuth. To do that, you simply take your azimuth. If your azimuth is greater than 180 degrees, you subtract 180 from that to get your back azimuth. So for instance, if I had an azimuth of 290 degrees, because it's greater than 180, I would subtract 180 to get 110 degrees as my back azimuth. If my azimuth is less than 180 degrees, I would add 180 degrees to get my back azimuth. So if I have a azimuth of 70 degrees, because it's less than 180, I will add 180 degrees to get 250 degrees as my back azimuth. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, just take some math. Alright, our second performance step is to convert a magnetic azimuth to a grid azimuth. To do that, you will locate the GM angle in your declination diagram on your map. It's usually in the lower margins of the map. It'll look something like this. You'll see lines showing you where true north, grid north, and magnetic north are in relation to one another, and then it will give you your GM angle, your grid magnetic angle, in degrees and oftentimes in mils. So, for instance, where I am here in Western Oregon, we have an easterly GM angle of 14 degrees and 58 minutes. In Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, where I was stationed, we had a westerly GM angle of 9 degrees. So it's different wherever you are. And in the western United States, you'll see an easterly GM angle. In the eastern United States, you'll see a westerly GM angle. So that's something you need to be aware of, is whether or not you have an easterly or a westerly GM angle, because it makes a huge difference. So, to convert from a magnetic azimuth to a grid azimuth, if you have an easterly GM angle, you're going to take your magnetic azimuth, add your GM angle, and that will give you your grid azimuth. So if my magnetic azimuth is 180 degrees, to convert that to a grid azimuth, I'm going to add whatever my GM angle, let's say it's 14 degrees, that would make my grid azimuth 194 degrees. Now, if I was somewhere that had a westerly GM angle, I would do the opposite. To convert from magnetic azimuth to grid azimuth, I would subtract the GM angle. So if I had a magnetic azimuth of 200 degrees and my GM angle was 9 degrees, I would subtract 9 from 200, and that would give me a grid azimuth of 191 degrees. Alright? Now, our third performance step is to convert a grid azimuth to a magnetic azimuth. So we're just doing the opposite now. So if we have an easterly GM angle, you're going to subtract your GM angle from your grid azimuth to get a magnetic azimuth. So let's say my grid azimuth is 90 degrees, and if I have an easterly GM angle of 14, I'm going to subtract 14 from 90 to get 76 degrees as my magnetic azimuth. If I have a westerly GM angle, to go from grid azimuth to magnetic azimuth, I'm going to add that GM angle. So if my grid azimuth is 80 degrees and my GM angle is 9 degrees, add those two together to get my magnetic azimuth. Turns out to be 89 degrees. Alright? So it can be a little confusing at times. The most important part is to know whether you have an easterly GM angle or a westerly GM angle. So you need to really look at your declination diagram and decipher which one you have. Alright, at this time, do I have any questions? Alright, you now have 5 minutes to practice. Begin. Alright, your 5 minutes are up. Does anybody have any questions at this time? Alright, we will now begin our evaluation. I'm going to restate our task, conditions, and standards so you all understand what you are being evaluated on. Our task is number 071-Charlie Oscar Mike-1016, Convert Azimuths. Conditions: you are a member of a squad preparing to conduct tactical movement, and you have been directed to convert azimuths in preparation for the movement. You have been given a 1 in 50,000 military map with a declination diagram, pencil, paper, a magnetic azimuth, and a grid azimuth. Some iterations of this task should be performed in Mop 4. Standards: convert an azimuth into a back azimuth, a magnetic azimuth to a grid azimuth, and a grid azimuth to a magnetic azimuth without error. everybody understands the task conditions and standards, we will now begin the evaluation. All members of the team will be evaluated. Alright, evaluations are complete. We have 3 trained personnel and 1 untrained personnel. The retraining will occur 1 week from today. Today is the 18th, so retraining will be conducted on January 18th at 1300 at this location in the uniform of the day. At this time, I'd like to conduct PCCs real quick, make sure we haven't lost anything. Everybody show me your map. Good. Pens and paper. Alright. And let me see your water source. Great. Okay, at this time, I'd like to do an after action review. So first we're going to talk about what was supposed to happen. So first I introduced myself. I discussed the task that we would be going over today. We did our deliberate risk assessment. We did our initial PCCs, PCIs, and following that we went over the task, conditions, and standards again, and began our training. We went through the 3 performance steps: how to convert an azimuth to a back azimuth, how to convert a magnetic azimuth to a grid azimuth, and how to convert a grid azimuth to a magnetic azimuth. Following that, I asked for questions. I then gave you 5 minutes to practice. We asked for questions again. Following that, we began the evaluations. After evaluations, I gave you the time, place, and date and uniform for retraining. And then we conducted PCCs a final time. So that was what was supposed to happen. Is that what did happen? Okay. What went right? I agree. What went wrong? Okay. And what can I do to improve for next time? Good, thank you. So to summarize our AAR, we went over what should have happened, what did happen, what went right, what went wrong, and what I can do to improve for next time. At this time, I'd like to ask if anybody has any injuries that I need to know about. Any injuries at all? Great. No injuries, so our controls worked. Fantastic. We go over the paperwork real quick, make sure we're all set. Please hold tight. Alright, that concludes our period of instruction. We're going to do a quick police call of the area, and then you are released back to your units. At this time, I would like to request closing out this training site.